Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Friday, May the 5th, 2023, and I'm here in the Dallas, Texas area. Right now it's like 82 degrees, and there's lots of humidity, and it's supposed to be a high of 93. I think it's the first time since we moved to Dallas 6 months ago, a little over 6 months ago, that we've had temperatures above 90. So I knew they were coming, and yet we got to go until the May the 5th, first week of May, and until we had our first 90 degrees. In fact, I was seeing on the weather predictions that I guess last year was one of the all-time hottest temperatures for Texas. They had, what was it, something like 40 days above 100 degrees. Crazy. And fortunately this year they are not expecting it to be above normal, so hopefully we'll be in the 90s, lower 90s for the majority of the highs. So anyways, outside here on the back porch, under the cover of our porch, I got my hair cut yesterday, and so I'm feeling cooler up top, and excited about this coming Sunday. This coming Sunday, we're doing our first Sunday service online for those of you who cannot find churches where you're at that understand inner healing and deliverance and can't get their people delivered, can't get them healed of their wounds. That's what the Lord has called us to do. And said that there's lots of people that have expressed, my gosh, we cannot find the church on Sunday mornings to go to that can help with, myself or my spouse or my children being healed of their wounds and getting delivered of demonic spirits. And so that's what we're going to start doing on Sunday morning, so people have an alternative to tune into. And it will be on Facebook, it will be on YouTube, it will be on TikTok, and we may expand it from there. So anyways, looking forward to that. Again, that'll be Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Mountain Time, and 8 o'clock Pacific Time. And then our next event that you can attend will be in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma on May the 20th. So that's in 2 weeks from Saturday at the Courtyard Northwest. And then Worldwide Deliverance Session on May the 28th. On Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. June the 10th will be in Dallas, Texas at the Courtyard in Plano, and we will continue to add more. Got another venue that's in Texas at a church that I'm in the process of getting that nailed down. So, all right, topic of the day. I try and talk about this at least once every 6 months, and that is how do you recognize the spirits of Jezebel, Leviathan, and Ahab in a person? And the reasons you know that it's a spirit is the people that are influenced by it will do very similar things. So that's why when you describe the characteristics or the traits of Jezebel in a person, then when you hear that, you can then match another person with that by simply saying, oh my gosh, how many of these characteristics do they do? And it's probably pretty close. You're going to see, I'm going to read off a list, and this list I have added to from my own personal experiences with people who have operated in that spirit. And so I try to add to that from time to time when there's a new trait that, oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, they all operated in this as well. So that list continues to grow a little by little, but I put that list, it's on Facebook, you can read it. It's on, of course it's in my book, Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. So my latest book, if you have not read that yet, we're seeing hundreds of those books now that are being acquired on Amazon every month. And we're seeing lots of people writing back saying, oh my gosh, I got healed, I got set free, I got delivered, this is crazy, I can't believe. And they're reading through the characteristics, and they can put two and two together. They can understand that, oh my gosh, that's why my mom treated me that way. That's why my dad treated me that way. That's why my spouse treated me that way. Or that's why I treated my spouse that way. So all these traits and characteristics are is to simply help you see that, in yourself or in another person. So, hold on here for a second. The local trash people are coming right on time. Although this is a new time. The trash people come, they normally come on a Monday, but now they're coming on a Friday. So I will kind of wait until they, I think it's symbolic. It's symbolic because when you get delivered, it's like you're taking the trash out. When you get delivered, all those evil things within us, all the sinful behaviors and ways, that we work, all that stuff and all that junk gets taken out. And it's a wonderful thing because then you are clean, then you are pure with all that junk. So that's kind of what they're doing here, is they're taking out the junk, taking out the demonic spirits that cause Christians to behave in ways that are not the way that they should. And so I'm going to read through this listing so that you can understand what it looks like when people operate in those spirits. And again, how do you get, the spirits of Jezebel and Leviathan? And I'll say this is that people that have the spirit of Jezebel and Leviathan, you're going to have both of those spirits. Because Leviathan is a prideful spirit. So people that operate in Jezebel are always extremely prideful. And it comes on a person when they get hurt and they get wounded when they're growing up. Sometimes they can do no wrong, like the golden child, so they have an entitlement inside of them. And that entitled spirit allows that spirit of Jezebel and Leviathan to operate in their life. And so they hear a lot of those voices from those demonic spirits. They think that they can do no wrong, and they don't care about other people. They have no empathy in other people. And so when you think about Jezebel, who do they target when they look to get married to someone? Well, that's a person that has the spirit of Ahab. And of course, in 1 Kings and 2 Kings, Ahab was the king. He had all the power and a lot of the money. And then Jezebel comes in to marry him. And then they end up doing all these evil things, all these bad things, killing people, killing prophets. But you see that throughout the world, and probably 85% of marriages are Jezebel and Ahab relationships. And the Lord kind of revealed that to me. I went through that myself. It wasn't fun to go through that, by no means. I had to suffer a lot. I had to bite my tongue a lot. I had to get yelled at a lot, emotionally abused a lot, physical, sexual abuse, all the above, all for the greaterment of parlaying that abuse into ministry to help people to get delivered from it. Because most people think that, well, gosh, you got the spirit of Jezebel, you can't get delivered from that. You're a narcissist. A lot of people would call people a narcissist, and that's how they would label them. But you can get healed and delivered, and we've seen thousands of them that have. Is it a miracle? Absolutely. Every time you get someone that's healed and delivered of that, I believe it's a miracle, because it's extremely hard. But you see, the things that I had to go through, the things my wife had to go through, we went through some extreme abuse and extreme control, manipulation, horrible stuff to have to endure. But you see, when you've overcome that, when you've forgiven people who have treated you horribly, now you have the anointing to help other people to get healed and delivered, and that's what we've done. And again, the book I wrote, Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons, it does list all these characteristics that I'm going to read off to you from that describe the people that struggle with the spirit of Jezebel and Leviathan. Again, Leviathan always comes with Jezebel. Leviathan is pride. Job 41, verse 34 says it's king over all the children of pride. And that's the truth. Very prideful people. And how do they get prideful? They get hurt and they get wounded. Or they get entitled and they can do no wrong when they're growing up. So it's one way or the other. But, if a person gets sexually touched or abused or molested, a girl, we'll say, that gets that, she will tend to not be very, uh, well, the demons will be able to attach to her soul at that point, and then she'll be very angry at men as she grows up. They tend to do that. And there's men, of course, that get hurt and wounded. They can get hurt by their fathers and mothers and pick up the spirit of Jezebel, and then they abuse women. So it goes both ways. Jezebel is not just a woman that has it. They can also be on men, and they are. You know, and again, you see about 85% of marriages that are Jezebel and Ahab. Ahabs tend to want to get along with people and just look the other way and tolerate things, allowing the Jezebel to operate, and there are benefits that Ahab got. Remember, he wanted Naboth's vineyard. He went to approach Naboth, and Naboth said, "No way, I'm not selling this to you. You're Ahab, you're evil, you're married to Jezebel, and you kill innocent people," and allow it to be done. And so he ended up not being able to get the vineyard, and then Jezebel took over, came up with a plan, like they do, a false narrative, which they're good at, because their demons tell them that. And then, of course, they brought him to a banquet. They had two scoundrels that lied about him, saying that he cursed God, came against the king, and so they killed him. And then they gave the vineyard to Ahab. So Ahab got what he wanted. So oftentimes you'll see Ahabs marrying Jezebels. And again, Ahabs can be a man or a woman, and they marry Jezebel. And there's things that the Jezebel gets them, because Jezebels are so intimidating and so threatening and controlling and manipulative. So all that being said, again, that's Jezebel's in 1 Kings, 2 Kings, as well as Ahab. And then Leviathan's in Job 41. It's also a couple other verses that they describe Leviathan in Isaiah. And then Revelation 2, 18 to 23. Talks about not tolerating that spirit of Jezebel, and that's a representation of today. Lots of churches that have people that operate in Jezebel that they tolerate. They allow them to come into leadership because they want to, and they don't say no to them. They don't say, "Hey, you need to get healed and delivered. We're not going to tolerate you in our church because you're going to take it over and you're going to end up stopping the Holy Spirit from flowing. You're going to start lies and rumors about our pastor and our pastor's wife." And again, people of all types can operate in that spirit. Pastors can have it, pastors' wives can have it, worship leaders can have it, deliverance people can have it. I've seen deliverance people that are very prideful, very arrogant, and they're not healed and delivered of their wounds. And so let's go through the characteristics of the Jezebel spirit. And again, how you know if you're struggling with this yourself, got to be honest, number one. But number two, if you've got like at least a third of these traits, then you probably have some of that spirit of Jezebel. If you have half or more, then you have a pretty strong Jezebel spirit. And how do you get delivered from it? You forgive those who hurt you. You repent for your pride. You repent for your sin. Command the demons to go. And again, that might be a process. It may take a person months to truly be freed from that, or years, because they may have pride for a long time. So, and it may be hard for them to forgive. But that's what we do. I do personal sessions for people, take them through getting their wounds healed, getting them delivered, and did a lot of sessions this week. Still have 2 more to go this afternoon with some couple of ladies from California. So, all right, here we are. They will be controlling. Number one, people that operate in the Jezebel spirit, they want their way. They're convinced that their way is the best. And if you don't give them what they want, they're going to get mad and angry at you. So the demonic voices tell them again, their decisions are always the best, and you can't trust anybody else. So they got to feel like they got control. Oftentimes it's because they didn't have control. They got hurt and wounded when they grew up, when they were little girls and little boys. You know, it could have been sexually touched, molested, raped. Could have been a father or mother that was controlling of them. So they weren't able to control things. They're manipulative. So they will say things to try to make you feel guilty into making you do what they want. So they might say things like this. This is an example. You know what? I need you to watch my child on Saturday night so that I can attend this, whatever. You name it. Event, party, could be whatever. Could be a church service. Because if you don't watch them, then I'm going to have to leave them with my neighbor, and they could get molested by the neighbor because they're not saved, they're not a Christian, and that'll be your fault. So they try to put a guilt trip, try to manipulate you into doing what they want. Know anyone like that? Again, control and manipulation are the first two characteristics that are pretty strong. Next is they're going to have an anxiety level, fear, but they'll mask it. They'll appear to be like they're in control, everything's fine and dandy, and they have no worries and fears, but what's really below that surface is they're anxious and they're fearful. They just don't want to admit it. So they're very good actors. They're professional grade actors, and that is the truth. They're also very jealous. You know, if you end up having any conversations with people, I don't know, of the opposite sex at church, they will think that you're in the middle of an affair. And you're like, what? Or if you have a ministry and you're talking to people from the opposite sex, which again, if you have a ministry, you're going to do that. That's part of ministries. Well, then they'll be extremely jealous. And you could be showing them all the conversations. You could be having conversations in front of them, messaging back and forth, helping people, just so that they're assured that you're not doing what you're not supposed to be doing. But it's because their demonic spirits are telling them that you can't trust them. You can't trust them. You better tell them what to do. Or they're trying to do things. They're having conversations that are not on the up and up. And then it causes them to go into like a tizzy. And they're afraid and they're jealous. And so they have to oftentimes control the person and make them do what they want because they're so out of control, jealous. So next is they like to play the role of a victim to make you feel sorry for them. Why would they do that? Why would they want to play the role of a victim? Well, because think about it. Anytime somebody comes up to you and says, you know what, I've been really hurt, really, really bad, what do? You feel sorry for them and you want to help them. And then they get their way. But again, you see, they're lying. They're portraying. Now, they were hurt. They were when they were little girls, little boys. But now that they're adults, they have become the abuser. But they're really good at acting like they're a victim. And that's the truth. Next, they'll blame you for all of their irrational behavior, as they hate to take responsibility for themselves. They'll say, you know what? You may say, listen, why do you treat me this way? You're horrible to me, and you're the victim of the Jezebel. Jezebel will say, well, I'm only this way because of you. It's all your fault. And so they will actually provoke you, provoke to get you to finally rise up and say, enough, I'm not taking this anymore. And then they point the finger at you and say, look how bad that you are. Well, like, wait a minute, you just yelled and screamed at me for the last 2 hours. I couldn't take it anymore. They're like, oh, yes, but you got mad and you cussed at me. You called me a name. You're like, well, geez, I'm pretty sure most people would do that after 2 hours of being shellacked verbally and emotionally abused. All right, next. They're going to be angry when you're happy. They don't like anybody to be happy. Because, my gosh, they're not happy. They'll never be happy. You can do everything that they want, and they'll never be happy. They'll never be satisfied. And so then they sure don't want you to be happy. That's why oftentimes on holidays, anniversaries, birthdays, they will try to ruin them because they don't want anybody else being happy and joyful. They could be jealous of their own kids and mad that they're having a birthday because they're no longer the center of attention. Again, that's all demonic. They're getting all these negative thoughts up here, thousands of them a day. You know, and it's rare that you actually see the core person that has that spirit of Jezebel. From time to time you will, and you'll say, well, that's why I fell in love with them. But that will be far and few between. Most of the times they'll be triggering, trigger in their emotions, and then they become a different person, and then they become an alternate personality, which is demonic, and they're angry and bitter. They're exhausting. Other traits, they're demanding. You better do what they want. They're defiant, like you can't tell me what to do. Why? Because maybe when they were growing up, they were controlled by an unhealthy mom or dad or relative, and they don't want to be told what to do. And those demons are telling them, don't you dare let anybody tell you what to do, because they're going to hurt you. They're very selfish. Now, that's not a fruit of the Spirit, by the way. Self-control is, but in reality, there's not much of any fruits of the Spirit. The only fruits of the Spirit are when they act like they're kind and loving, and that's an act. It doesn't last very long. They have fruits of the flesh all day long. That's who they really are inside with their demonic spirits. Until they get healed and delivered. They can get healed and delivered, then they're great. But that's a few and far between. And that's why you need to go to a ministry that understands this and how to get people healed and delivered. And there's ministries out there. That's what we do at Restored to Freedom. We've helped thousands of people get healed and delivered of Jezebel. Okay, they're sexually impure, sexually selfish. They'll control their spouse oftentimes sexually. Well, if you don't do what I want, then I'm going to cut you off. And when you're trying to have a sexual relationship with them, they ruin everything for the most part. They're very selfish. It's very demonic. You can kind of see it in their eyes. They're kind of scary, and they're kind of evil, and they're kind of not, there's no intimacy with them. So sexually, and it talks about that in Revelation 2:18-23, they're sexually impure. And you could be looking at pornography, could be lusting after other people. And and even when you're married to them, it's not what it should be. They taint everything. They're very broken, demonic people. They can also, if they're dating a person, they're going to be pushing them to have sex before marriage. They don't want to wait. They don't want to. They can't. They're very selfishly motivated. So, also, they're masters at lying. Oh my gosh, lying and half-truths, 10% truths. They can come up with the biggest whoppers ever. Why? Why are they so good at lying? Well, they have demonic spirits that give them a false narrative of how to paint another person. Oftentimes what happens with a Jezebel is they are being mean, controlling to someone, could be their spouse, and when that person finally puts up a boundary, kind of pulls away, says, my gosh, you're not healthy at all, well then they get really hurt, they feel rejected, and those demons rage within them. And then they come up with whoppers. And then they come up with lies that go on and on and on and on and on. I've seen some that they actually were very evil, very abusive to their spouse. And then the spouse didn't do anything. They just tried to love them. And then that person that's the Jezebel ends up filing for divorce. Oftentimes it's the other way around. The Jezebel doesn't want to file for divorce. They want to make their spouse do the divorce. That way they can act like they're an innocent little victim and they didn't do anything wrong and say, oh, I always wanted to save the marriage. And when they didn't, all they did was try to control and abuse the spouse when the spouse finally says, I'm not going to take that anymore. And then I've seen this where they will actually file for divorce and then they'll turn around and change the narrative because it doesn't fit well. And they'll lie to people and say, well, they filed for divorce on me. They just abandoned me. It wasn't the truth at all. But how many people check on it? How many people go to the courthouse and say, ah. So anyways, and again, so again, most of the time the Jezebel doesn't want to divorce. They want to make the abused do the divorce for them. And then they can act like they're an innocent little victim when they're not. They were the reason and the cause for it. All right, next. They have a desire for power and leadership. That's why they want to get in good with pastors of churches so they can run things. They can run the deliverance team. They can run the intercessory team. They can run the prophecy team. I'm the prophet of the house. They have a lot of pride. They love their titles. Call me a prophet. Call me a prophetess. Call me an apostle. Call me a whatever they go, pastor. So they love their titles. What else? They want to shut down the true Holy Spirit. They're dominant. They have little to no empathy at all for their victims. Oftentimes they have job instability. Why can't they? Why do you think they can't keep a job very well? Oftentimes they overstep their bounds. They think they know everything. They don't like to being told what to do. And so the people that are employing them have no choice but eventually to terminate them, saying, listen, you're a mess. You can't do the first 3 things that we ask you to do. And you think that you're better than everyone else. They're very prideful and very arrogant. So oftentimes they aren't able to keep their employment and they have to go from place to place. Or if they are able to keep it, they do such a bad job that they can get fired. um, and or they can blame a lot of people along the way. So what else? They'll mock you. They'll make fun of you, belittle you. They'll intimidate you. They'll threaten you. They'll isolate you from family and friends so that they can control you better. They might even want to move you away, like out into the woods or mountains, all by yourself. So they got you to themselves. And that way they can really abuse you, because now you don't have anybody within hours away to help you. Next, Jezebel does not like to be inconvenienced. So if you have a plan of doing something throughout the day and then it changes, they don't like that. They don't like to be caught off guard because they want to control everything. They do not like to share. Again, they're very selfish. They ruin holidays, ruin birthdays, ruin anniversaries. They're rebellious. They're suspicious of your intentions. They're paranoid. Why? Because their intentions are bad. They're evil, like all the time. So therefore, their demons are telling them that, hey, I want you to look at them and think of you. They don't really tell them that, but what will happen is they'll look at a person and that's, very godly, trying to do what God would want, and then they accuse them of evil intentions when they're the ones that have the evil intentions. All right, next. They're very critical, very judgmental. They show contempt and disrespect. In fact, let's go back to the critical, judgmental. The Lord just showed me this. Pharisees and scribes. Jesus was talking about not judging because of the logs in the eyes of the Pharisees and scribes. Of course, Paul talked about how we need to judge those in the church who are living in sin and remove them. Remember, I've talked about those several times. And that's the truth, because when you allow people to operate, especially if they're in some type of leadership position in the church, and they're not clean and pure themselves, they're going to make a mess of things. And they do. So, but if you're a Pharisee and scribe, Jesus says, hey, don't be judging, because you need to look in the mirror yourself. They show contempt and disrespect for everyone. They speak ambiguously so that they can deny what they said later. They'll oftentimes, they call it word salad, where they're talking all these different things and making things up, and it causes a person to feel confused, and they'll also twist things. They'll say, I never said that, and they actually did. So if you can record them, you can play it back and say, aha, you did, you said that. And that's a part of that demonic spirit. They're really adept and professional at being able to deny things that they actually said and did. All right, next. They, again, accuse you of doing what they actually do. They take an offense easily at everything. They're hypersensitive and offend you all day long. All the while, they accuse you and treat you like crap and want you to expect you to take it. They can even cuss at their victims in private while acting godly to the public, as their image is everything. They'll overtalk you so that you cannot talk. And they'll go on for hours and hours and hours to wear you down so that they'll get their way. They'll argue about petty things, stupid things. They'll rarely ever admit that they're wrong or apologize. They'll especially target leaders or ministries or churches to try to discredit and lie about their leadership. They'll compete with their own children. They'll try to say, well, look at you, you're nothing, you can't do what I can do. And it hurts the child. And you're like, what are you doing? You're my parent. You're my dad. You're my mom. You shouldn't be competing against me. But they're extremely competitive, inappropriately competitive. They exaggerate everything. So they'll make big whoppers of lies. And if you finally try to call them on it, they'll try and change the subject 5 times in 6 minutes and confuse you. They're great at acting like they're the victim to get people to sympathize with them over their true victims, and they use social media, have private conversations to gain support and get people to believe their lies about their true victims. They talk often about exaggerated, grandiose future plans that never happen. They gossip and spread rumors against as many as possible that will listen. And you see this a lot. If you end up having to separate and you're in marriage with them, you separate, they will tell you, now make sure you don't tell anybody about anything of our separation. And then what they'll do is tell everybody that they possibly can that will listen to them. They come up with a bunch of lies. Act like they're the victim, you're the abuser. I've seen this 1,000 times. That's why, I won't get fooled when I'm doing a session with somebody, or a couple. I can tell who is telling the truth and who is not. And it takes the experience of going through this yourself and knowing with other people. Again, I have love and compassion for everyone, including those who have the Jezebel spirit. I want them to be healed and delivered, just like Jesus does. But also, Jesus is not happy with people that are prideful. He says he hates it, Proverbs 6:16 through 19. He hates a proud look, a haughty look. All right, what else? They'll compete against their own spouse on most things to try to defeat them. They need constant validation because of their insecurities. They act assured that they're very insecure. They act sweet and innocent, but it's fake, as they are mean and bully their victims behind closed doors. They cannot stand to be told no. They feel like they are your personal policeman and will report on you if you don't do exactly what they think you should do. They always have drama in their lives. They don't have peace. Drama, drama, drama. Drama king and drama queens that have the Jezebel spirit. What else? Love to provoke you until they get you angry. And then they blame you when you can no longer stand quiet anymore. They demand that you do whatever they tell you to do. They can't stand it if other people love you more than them. They crave attention and adoration. They enjoy starting arguments, as they never want to have any peace. They don't have peace in their lives. What else? They'll continue to repeat their version of a story over and over and over to convince as many people that their lies are the truth. If it's a woman that has Jezebel, again, both men and women have the Jezebel spirit. If they're a woman, they will pursue men. They will be relentless. They may do it on social media. They may come on with a person that's doing ministry and like and heart and comment and make it so known that, hey, that's my man, and you better back off because I am going to marry him. And so they'll do that a lot. Make it very, very, and then maybe later, if the marriage doesn't work out, they'll lie and say, oh, I never did anything. He pursued me. And it's like, really? Nope, that's a lie. So again, they pursue men aggressively, and that's not correct order. Men are to pursue the women. They also have constant chatter in their minds from the enemy, causing them to operate in fear. They're oftentimes overly concerned with their physical appearance. Like the narcissist, in what Greek mythology, narcissist had fell in love with himself. He saw himself in the river, and then he fell into the river, didn't he? Didn't he die, I think? So they love to be adored and praised. And I'll say this too. Oftentimes people will have the persona that a person has Jezebel, wears lots of makeup, and spends lots of time on their beauty. There, of course, are some that are like that, but there's also some Jezebels that look like, I don't know, the church lady from Saturday Night Live. Looks like, I don't know, masculine, and doesn't do much at all. That way they'll really throw a person off. There's no way that I could be the Jezebel spirit. Why? Because I'm so good at acting in front of the church, like I'm such a godly woman. I hear from the Lord. I'm an intercessor. I will pray for you. And they're great actors. And those are really hard to see. That's why they're some of the strongest Jezebel-spirited people. I've seen it. All right, they hate to be rejected because they were often rejected when growing up. They're very secretive to cover up all their lies and evil stuff. They want you to spend lots of money on them and believe they deserve the best of everything. Oftentimes they need money and they drain their victims of money. They love to portray their lives on social media as being so godly, so pure, but also try to get sympathy from people so they can have people feel sorry for them and have them give them money. They'll tell you to do something, but then get mad at you when you don't do it exactly as they want, or they'll change the rules so that you never can ever satisfy them. They'll say, hey, I want you to do this job and do it with A, B, C, and D in that order. And then when you do it in that order, they'll say, okay, now I want you to change it to C, D, B, and A. You're like, oh my gosh, and then they criticize you on that. Say, no, I think you should do it in B, A, C, D order. Just shake your head. Those who are in a relationship with them will oftentimes feel sick to their stomachs, and they can also oftentimes get sick, get diseases, get tumors, die in their early ages. Late 30s, have a heart attack, early 40s, die of a tumor. Why? Because they're being Jezebeled. And that Jezebel demonic spirit never stops, continues to never give up in trying to abuse you emotionally. And they're smart, they're wise. They know that they normally can't get away with physical abuse and sexual abuse, although some do. But they know that emotional abuse, that they keep tearing you down, that eventually you might die. And then they can act like they're a victim. Oh, I love them so much. I'm so sorry to see them go. And then they go out and get remarried. And then that woman that was healthy starts getting sick. And it can go both ways. Men can be sick because of a Jezebelic woman. So they're unable to truly love. Oftentimes they, once they marry you, once they get you to say I do, is they oftentimes change on your honeymoon or within the first couple weeks. They become evil and controlling and mean. And you're like, wait a minute, where did this personality come from? I didn't see that prior to saying I do. Well, it's because those demons are smart. They're like, I'm not going to cause or treat you horribly, because if I do, you'll say no, and you won't go through with the marriage and the wedding. So, all right, they enjoy playing mind games, stringing you along, playing on your heartstrings. Now, once they realize they can no longer control you, if you finally say, listen, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore, then they'll discard you. They oftentimes want to isolate you so you don't have any other relationships with anyone else. They oftentimes have many secret, private conversations with people to lie about you, try to destroy your reputation, to turn them against you. They surely do not want you to three-way text them, because if you do that, you can hold them accountable with what they say. They hate that. They're, oftentimes feel they're superior to everyone else. They're above having any issues with themselves. They'll betray you. They'll be very disloyal. Try and do a lot of things works-wise to make them appear good to the community or church, but while they have live in the evilest behaviors behind closed doors. If they're a man that has Jezebel and they're going to shake the hand of another man, they'll try to break your hand, try to shake it really hard to prove that, hey, I'm the man and I am in control and you better give me what I want. Nothing you can do will please them. They'll accuse their victims of being a narcissist over and over again on social media and in secret conversations with others. They want you to submit to them and not to God. This is idolatry. They'll act like they are anointed of God, but they have no anointing. They love their titles. Call me prophet, call me pastor, call me apostle, etc., which they oftentimes purchase online or self-appointed. They can have people they idolize who represent ungodly behavior, sexual movie stars, and so forth. They prey upon people that have mercy hearts. All right, next, let me bring up the Leviathan spirit. Okay, the Leviathan spirit characteristics are, you're going to have pride, and they're going to have pride. Again, anybody that has Jezebel has Leviathan. Very prideful. They have false humility, though. They'll act like they're humble, but it's not true. They're great actors. They twist communication in their minds, and they cause a lot of confusion. So if you're having discussions with them, they'll change the subject many, many times, and it just confuses you. The spirit Leviathan will literally wrap around their spine and twist. So oftentimes they're having some pains in their back and their neck. May go to the chiropractor a lot. Could attach to some of their organs. They have back pain, neck pain, headaches, insomnia, can't sleep well at night. If they try to read Christian books or Bible, they'll fall asleep. Oftentimes they can be having scoliosis, fibromyalgia, and they may have Freemasons and Scottish Rite and Shriners and Eastern Star in their bloodline. So what typically happens with Jezebel is they get hurt when they're little kids. They grow up, they start doing damage to those they have relationships with. Then as they get older, they end up starting getting a lot of sickness, because what happens is Jezebel will then turn on the host, turn on them, and start causing them to have a lot of sicknesses and diseases, and then want to kill them because they have no more use for them. Now they're old. Now they're whatever, 50, 60. And a lot of times they're walking around, they have a lot of back pain, neck pain, and they can't get any relief from it. They can go to the chiropractor a bunch, they can get surgeries from doctors, but it's demonic, it's a spirit. So people that have Ahab, they oftentimes have a position of influence. They have money. Now, they could be a pastor of a church. Again, there's pastors that are Jezebels as well, but I think there's more Ahabs than there are Jezebels in pastorships. And Ahabs oftentimes have a position of influence. Again, they're in charge of people, or they have a lot of money. They do not like confrontations, Ahabs. They allow ungodly behavior and decisions to happen. They have a hard time being a strong spiritual leader, strong desire to make everybody happy and like them. They're afraid of being rejected and alone, do not like taking responsibility for things that could be bad, but they'll do it. They feel more secure being married to someone who will run the show. They oftentimes will compromise on their own sexual purity in relationships. Often Jezebel can be seductive and seduce them. They expect bad things to take place. Again, these Ahabs can be men or women, understand that. They avoid telling people what they need to do and passively put up with bad behavior. If someone's angry with Ahab, then you believe it must be your fault. They believe it's your duty to make everybody happy and comfortable. They believe what others say about them. If they say that you're not a good person, then you believe it. So they can get brainwashed pretty easily. They have a challenge making decisions. Believe they should always act happy in spite of hardships or trouble. Always feel a failure, unaccepted, insecure. They give power away in order for other people to validate their identity and tell them who they are. They fear abandonment, can become clingy, needy, and helpless. They never take up their God-given freedom and refuse to step up and become assertive and command respect. Usually do not forgive themselves and often have issues with the Lord, can be angry at the Lord. They'll do anything to gain acceptance. They're oftentimes a very nice person, but they're too nice. And they oftentimes have a low self-esteem. So that's why Jezebel will pick Ahabs to either marry or to partner with. So all this hopefully makes some sense. Again, I wrote a book called Freedom from Soul Wounds and Demons. It helps people to get healed and delivered of their wounds and demons. And when you're healed of all this junk, then you can actually have the fruit of the Spirit. You can actually flow in your giftings in a pure heart. You know, prophecy and praying for people for healings and so forth. And that's what we need. We need to have a church of people that are healed and delivered. And so that's why we're doing Sunday services starting this Sunday morning at 10 o'clock Central Time on Facebook, on YouTube, and on TikTok. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone on Sunday morning. That, again, if you've got a church that does healing, deliverance, and is doing what they should be doing, then always go to your local church. Absolutely, positively. But if you can't find anything, and we have, again, a good percentage of people that can't find anything, then you'll have an option at least. So, all right. Well, I am going to go inside where the air conditioning is. So I will see you later. Saying goodbye to